Hello, everyone. Is it too late to say Happy New Year? It's not, is it, Yinka?
Not at all. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Here we are in 2021. And what a great way to start my first episode of Coaching Conversation in this, what will be a great year. Why? Because we choose for it to be. I would like you to welcome my fabulous guest, who I've been trying to get on for absolutely ages, Yinka Ewuola. Yinka, thank you so much for joining me. How's your day been so far?
Thank you so much for having me, Amantha. I have had an awesome day so far.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, we're going to learn why that smile on your face is quite so big in just a few moments. But for those of you that don't know Yinka, let me tell you a little bit about this amazing lady. She's a peak performance coach. She's a consultant. She's focused on holistic success for women in business. Basically, there's nothing that she can't do to sort you out. So it gives me great pleasure. We've known each other for a little while on LinkedIn, and Yinka writes the most amazing posts. I mean, you're like a poet, aren't you? Well, I think you are anyway. And your posts always grab my attention. So first thing to say is Yinka is on LinkedIn. If you haven't checked her out already, that should be one of your first ports of call. But first, let's take a deep dive into Yinka and what she's all about. So Yinka, tell us a bit about what you do. What do you do?
Okay, well, like I said, thank you so much for having me. I do a number of different things. So I run Calla Success Systems, and there I'm focused. I have this mission that absolutely lights my fire, which is to support women to build thriving and profitable businesses, but while living full, fab and nourishing lives. I love that mission. As I said, it totally lights my fire. And the reason why I love it is because it enables me to really support women, not to have to feel like they need to make the false choice between, their health and their wealth, or their money and their life. So much of the business in building information out there, a lot of the personal development information out there is very much created by men for men. And I don't know that it was necessarily intended that way, because obviously there are principles that are universal, but the fact is that principles are applied in context, and the context of the lives of women is very different in many cases to that of men. So I love the fact that I'm able to, support women to define success on their own terms, to really kind of get to grips with systems and leverage and assets to enable them to build the life of their dreams, and to really do the business in their business without being crushed and depleted along the way.
That's so important, isn't it? Because we are sort of funneled into this way of thinking that it's all, you've got to make choices. You can't have it all. Or some people tell you can have it all, but they don't really tell you the backstory to what you need to do in order for that to happen, right? So to have someone like yourself who can meet those women halfway and go, yeah, okay, so you want more balance in your life, let's get that for you, or you've got the balance in your life, but you're not getting the traction you want with your business, well, let's get that for you. And I love that, and I think that does resonate through your post. So that is wonderful. And holistic pathways, again, why shouldn't those be in business? Why shouldn't we be able to have that?
It's such a huge missing piece of the puzzle, and we spend a whole lot of time focused on how amazing these business leaders are, but take someone like Steve Jobs, who everybody's obsessed with what he did at Apple, but whatever the amazingness that Apple is right now, the fact is that Steve Jobs is dead. And so he isn't around to enjoy and to see the heights of his own creation. There is no substitute for health. There is no substitute for your well-being. I'm a huge believer that health is the highest form of wealth, and there isn't any, wealth or any other type of resource, a time as well, so powerful. These are resources that we have to treasure and we really have to make the most of. So for me, I'm really passionate about supporting women. I don't like being told what to do. So anyone who says you can't have it all.
Yeah, exactly. It's a red rag.
Anyone who says you can't have it all, to me, that just sounds like a challenge that I need to resolve. It's not a problem. It's not a limit. It's not a barrier. It's not even an obstacle. It's just, I'm never about no, I'm about how. So I'm very focused on, you know, whenever I do speak to women and they're wondering about how to deal with the juggle, you know, this idea of balance in work and life, I'm much more about harmony, and saying that actually things don't need to be mathematically equal and exactly the same. Actually, what is much more beautiful is the musical metaphor and the idea of harmony. Different notes, different lines, different tunes, highs and lows, but everything coming together to make a really beautiful symphony.
Oh, that's lovely. I love that. I'm a great one for a metaphor. I love that. And that's so powerful, because that's how the brain works. You know, not many people know that. We have 5 different types of brainwave, and I often say to people they're like the keys on the piano. You know, you've got your low notes, your medium notes, and your high notes. And actually using any one is only going to give the same type of music to you in your life. So I think that's so important, Yinka. And again, you sort of you do that. So you talk about, you've got systems and you've got methods. That's really important as well. So but where did you start out? Were you always in this field? Where's your story from?
Not
Where
at
did you
all.
start out?
Okay, so I've always been a geek, and I was, long before, because I'm so passionate about the role of coaching, and the role of question asking in coaching. I can say I was always tending in this direction, because I'm sure my parents will tell you that my first word was why, and I've spent my whole life asking questions.
Brilliant.
But a long time ago now, my first role out of university was in, apart from, I did a gap year, so I helped in charity, but then I went into banking, and it was an incredible learning experience. It was amazing, you know, to work in the City of London and to do some incredible things. But I had a situation, my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she just, because I never tell this story effectively, I'll say it now, she is absolutely fine. And she went climbing up Mount Kilimanjaro to celebrate 10 years free of cancer. So she's fine and amazing.
Brilliant.
And I'm clearly descended from, you know, incredible women anyway.
Yes.
But I was in banking. She ran a business in a food consultancy for children in schools. But I kept seeing her leaving treatment to go and service clients. And I kept, so I stepped out of my banking role. It kind of coincided with a few personal things in my own life. I was about to have my first child. And now she was leaving treatment to go and service clients. And it just, you know, as I began to step in to help her in her business, other women asked me to do the same. And I kept seeing this trend of, when things are challenging in the life that we live, women come together and create this amazing safety net for each other, for the men in their lives, for children, for society, this social glue role where we're always so supportive. And yet when these women needed that support, you know, they couldn't always guarantee on the same level of support that they would need as they would have given if they were in the other side. So I began to think, okay, as I was learning how to build businesses, how to, you know, bring my operation, banking, marketing experience from my banking role previously, how do I create a situation where a woman who wants to build a business will get that same love and that same support and that same safety net that she would have provided in her life to all the other people in her sphere. And that's kind of where the premise of my business came about. It is to be, you know, that support for women, because our lives are different, but the fact that it's different doesn't make it a disadvantage. It literally just means that there is an opportunity for us to use our strengths and use the way that we work best, and use the things that are important to us and are our kind of natural lean-ins, and, you know, how our brain naturally centers, to use that to our advantage, so we can build a business, we can have all of the things that we want. We just don't, you know, we get them and we are able to have them. And so that's how, you know, my business came up that way. You know, as I was supporting my mum in her business, more and more women were like, could you help me? Could you help me? So I, you know, freelance for quite a bit, just a project here, a project there around my family. And then, yeah, it was just towards the, like, I became, you know, it was just before the pandemic, which I don't know how that became a good point to kind of really go gung-ho in your business. But yeah, I was like, you know what, women and you know, the studies have shown women are really going to, I thought to myself, women are going to be really challenged in this pandemic with everyone going back home. You know, there's going to be a big toll on them, you know, in terms of working from home, in terms of shouldering the burden around, you know, homeschooling and you know, basic, you know, house life admin. And so I was like, you know, if I'm going to do this, this is going to be a time when women can really do with my help. So that was when I decided to really kick it off, and that's where I've been really kind of flying since.
So that's amazing. So just to clarify, so are you supporting women one-to-one and in groups? And in that case, what put you off maybe putting together a networking group? So I'd be really interested to know that about your decision.
To be honest, I'm not put off by any of it. I do support women one-to-one. I have an accelerator, so I do support and you know, offer group coaching in that way. I also have courses that are on the way. For me, one of the things, and this is one of the things that I support women with, it's never about something being right or wrong. It's about understanding what you are good at and what you enjoy. I think it's really important to enjoy what you do and to lean to your strengths. And so, you know, I love you know, the one-to-one interaction, you know, the individual and bespoke aha moments are like angels sing when you get those. I love, you know, group mind and you know, observational learning that comes from working together in a group, and you know, coaching calls where someone comes off and they didn't say a word and you were like, are you okay? And they're like, yes. Oh my gosh, you know, so and so's question has totally changed my business. I didn't even know that was the question I was supposed to ask. So I love that. I love the fact that courses enable people to get access to my zany way of thinking without necessarily having to have any of my time. And also I can make courses a lot more affordable and kind of more accessible to more people. But yeah, it's not, like I said, and as you could probably guess, it's definitely not either or. It's definitely both, and it's just about kind of what works best, you know, and what is kind of the next part of my roadmap. You know, for example, the accelerator, I think that everything about being successful comes with, you know, a few key things. One, a really clear idea of the destination. So, you know, I do work in that space. But two is then a roadmap to get from where you are now to where you want to be. And that's, for example, you know, where I'm really leaning in, because I, you know, I said to you before we started, I can't believe how many women are, you know, trying to build a business without any kind of real meaningful roadmap. I'm like, if you don't know where you're going, literally any road will get you there. And unfortunately, given how our lives are, we don't have time to waste. You know, 80-20 rule, 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your time. When you have less time because you've got homeschool, you've got birthday cards to go and buy and remember, because they never remember to get them themselves, you know, all of those other things, you know, you've got less time to waste. So you need to make even more of an impact. And the roadmap is, you know, one of the systems, for example, that gives you so much leverage, because you're able to sit down, and if it's for 30 minutes, you can get more work done in 30 minutes than most people get done in a morning.
Absolutely. And I'm on the same hymn sheet as you. I say to people all the time, you know, when you've got purpose, that's great. That's like your destination. But, you know, I work at the level of values. Values for me are like your super fast highways to get you to your destination. And guess what? Toll free, blockade free, no police, you know, plenty of lovely views to notice along the way. But that's the thing, isn't it? You know, and I think that's the sticking point for a lot of women. You know, they've got this great idea, they feel very passionate about it, and then it's but how am I going to make it happen? You know, and it's that, it's not the why, you know, it's not what they've got, the why, they're clear on that, it's the how. And
that's where, yeah, sorry, I was going to say, that's where it's funny, because you talk about purpose. I have what I call holistic success method that I've put together to support women in business, and one part of that method has a 6P framework that goes through and literally starts with purpose. So when you said it, I smiled, because I was like, yeah, of course, you have to know the purpose, you have to know why you are doing what you're doing. But then, you know, you've got these other P's that you really need to focus on. And again, values are absolutely critical. You need to understand you as a person. I might have an idea, to be I'm trying to think of the most ridiculous thing that I could be given. I'm, a gymnast. I'm 6 foot tall. I am, I'm past gymnast age. So, it's one thing to have an idea, but then you have to look at it in the context of the reality of who you are and what you can do, what your skills are, what your values are, and also, is there a market for what you want to sell? There's another thing as well, that market need is the number one thing that will determine, however brilliant your idea will be, whether it will fly or it will fail. And so the second P looks at you as a person, but then the other P's get to look at the market, your positioning, idea, and then scenario planning as well. What happens if there's a global pandemic? What happens if you can't do the things that you feel like are your normal or your go-to? What happens if you are you have challenges, or things go really well or things go badly? So the opportunity to kind of go through that 6P framework to create a really powerful roadmap, have a clear idea of the destination, while doing that, please don't think for a second that because we're building this roadmap through that accelerator experience, that we're not, every week we have goals. I was talking to the ladies this morning, I was like, what are your targets for this week? They're like, number of sales calls per day, number of posts per day, offers per day. And these women are building their businesses daily. We're not going to wait 2, 3, however many months to come up with this beautiful plan before we get started. The best time to start was 20 years ago. So if we didn't start then the next best time to start is now.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing that most people get put off by, isn't it? There's that groan. There's like a collective groan when the minute they think they've got to sit down and do planning. But actually what people need to get over really quickly is no, this is going to shortcut things. It's going to get you more time back. It's just going to make it easy. But it's that, and having someone by your side like you, Yinka, who actually encourages them, who takes them through it, who allows them to say, look, it's all right to not understand this, or for it to feel difficult, or for it to feel tricky, but that sea of support and that wave that comes with it is so necessary, isn't it? Because
and that that resistance, we call it like that resistance is proof that you're growing, that you're in the right spec. We inaccurately assume that when things feel bad, it's because they are bad. And it's such an interesting way to view things. But more often than not, it's literally, your brain is designed to keep you safe. Anything that is like not in your current sphere of comfort is designed as unsafe. Your brain is like, oh no, you want to get better. What are you talking about? No, stay in your comfort zone. Yeah. So all of those resistance points are literally just proof of growth. But when you're on your own and you're freaking out because you've got to get on the phone and call someone and do a sales call, you're like, So having other people, going through the same things that you are, dealing and discussing the resistance, having, practical, the opportunity to ask those questions. What do I say? How do I say it?
Yes.
And those sales calls are all there. But most importantly, to know that, you're not alone. You're not, crazy for having these bad feelings, and, to remove the judgment from yourself, and having other people come around and say, actually, I felt exactly the same and I did it anyway. And, I got the outcome I want. I didn't get the outcome I want, but I did it anyway. We're only ever going to be as good as the impact we can make, and we can only make impact if we take action. So having that progressive environment to support that action is, for me, in my opinion, priceless.
Absolutely. My goodness, we've sort of melded a few of the questions I had for you there. But so when we come back to you a little bit more then, what's the driving force when we talk about values, those things that underpin our skills and abilities, our behaviors, and all the goals and results that we will eventually get for ourselves? What values underpin Yinka that you draw on daily?
Yeah. Well, I would say in the first instance, I have very strong faith. Okay. So I am a Christian. And so for me, I think it's really important that given the harm and the hurt that has been caused by religion over the years, and the misunderstanding of what the word, for example, Christian, comes along with, and the baggage that it comes along with, one of my real powerful values, or one of the things that really drives me, is to be someone who demonstrates, the values that they believe in. So one of mine, for example, is integrity. Another of mine is, impact. But as I always say to people, it's not good enough to say the words. There isn't a person out there who will say that they don't have integrity. However, integrity means very different things to different people. And, that could be, some people would say, I have integrity, but I'll happily pay cash in hand for, things, or, I'm happy to, pay a little less, for to take off the VAT and things like that. And I have no judgment for anyone or their choices. And I'm also not going to tell you what I do either. But what I will say is that it's important to define your values. It's important that you know what they mean to you, and then you live by them. And the do unto others as you would have others do unto you is so powerful. It's so simple, but it's so powerful. As someone who, I am introverted. I'm very, very introverted. And I grew up in a very extroverted family, and Nigerian culture is very extroverted anyway. So I've always had a very kind of square peg in a round hole experience. And so it does make me, really want to kind of lead with empathy and lead with ensuring that I meet people where they're at, and ensure that it is about the right thing at the right time. So I love the fact that as a coach, it enables me to be super helpful, but it enables me to show my coachees that they're the heroes in their story. I am not your hero, you are. And I love whenever they get that sense of that knowledge, and they're like, I can do this. They come and their shoulders are hunched, and they, you can see the baggage, and we talk things through, and by the end they're like, yes, I know what I can do now. I know my next step, and I can do this. It's like so amazing to see that impact, but also to know that in a world where everyone is telling you, oh, be the picture, coaching allows you to be the frame, and it allows someone else to be the picture. And I just love the fact that, it gives you the opportunity to really, I think a lot in terms of impact for now, but also legacy in general. And I'm really focused in the stuff that I do, my children, I'm focused on creating a good legacy. I definitely want to be the kind of person that when people meet, they say, things are better, or like my life is better than when I first arrived, because I met Yinka. She left a good legacy. She left a good impact. So they are kind of my overriding values, and all the other values kind of stem from that. I'm someone who I work very much around the idea of excellence. So the age-old coaching question that we spoke about is something I feel really passionately about. Excellence is really important to me. Quality is also another one, but also ensuring that things are fit for purpose. Because we've always done it this way is not a good answer to any question. Everything should always be up for grabs if we're really going for the best. So they're some of my underpinning values, alongside asking all the questions in the world. I ask a lot of questions.
And that's brilliant, because what you're always doing by asking questions is putting your own frame of reference to one side, aren't you? By Absolutely. Always asking those questions, and I love that. I really like that about being the frame, and I agree with you. And as a coach, those moments where people say you've changed my life, and I always step back and I always say, no, you changed your life. I was just a very privileged person on the sidelines, and I like you, Yinka, hold very many of the same values. I might call them slightly different things, but I think the integrity thing is so important as a coach, and that non-judgment, to not sit in judgment of anybody, but to just appreciate people are doing the best they can at the time that we happen to come into their lives. And really our duty of care is to assist them, like you've so brilliantly said, to move beyond where they are to where they want to be, not where we want them to be.
Absolutely. And that idea of agency and self-determination, I think, is so important. But I think it's, I wouldn't say more important, but I feel it more keenly as a woman of colour growing up in the UK. The idea of being able to determine for myself what success means to me, and therefore, to apply that, for women, or, for other people of colour, other Black people, people with disabilities, I feel so strongly that people should have the right to choose for themselves. And so that's one of the reasons why, I love having that coaching tool, because it isn't anyone else's prescription over your life and deciding for you. It's you deciding for yourself. It's you being equipped with these tools to go to that place that is important to you. And as a result of that, one of my last values is a made up word, but it's a possibilitarian. It just means that everything is possible. And it just means that we're no longer restricted to, what we can see now, or what we know now. Once you have this possibilitarian mindset, I wouldn't say anything is possible. Gravity is still, one of those, the universal laws are still in play. But what it does mean is that rather than thinking in terms of limits, you're thinking in terms of opportunities. And I love that. I love taking people out of, looking at things in one way and saying, well, that's the story you're telling yourself now. What is that true? What if that's not true? Then, then what's possible? I love seeing that kind of switch and how they're able to completely reframe things on that basis.
Yeah, and that's brilliant. I love that. And actually, as you said, there's two things that you've said that on a daily basis I say to my clients, which is about the Paretos Law. You're better off spending 80% of your time doing 20% of the things that you're, amazing at. And so I really focus with people on their strengths, because that's where you feel most motivated and most energized. But the reality is, most people, again, get to a point where the enthusiasm has waned, and then they find themselves on the path of limitation. It's like, oh yeah, but that means then I can't do this and I can't do that, or this won't happen. Whereas that whole premise of being always on the path of possibility and opportunity means that you're open, aren't you? You're open. And that's the best place for anyone to be to coaching. So I would say to people, if you've never experienced coaching, remember, everyone needs a coach. And of course we would say that, but the reality is it becomes effortless, and it's not like a one-stop shop. You take those learnings through for the rest of your life. So the question I'll have, and I know lots of people will want to know this, because I have people ask me all the time, because as coaches, the assumption is we just got it all going on and we never had an obstacle at all in our lives ever. Not true. So what's the biggest obstacle you've actually had to overcome in your life, Yinka, that's informed what you do now?
I mean, to say, I literally laughed out loud when you said, people think we're coaches, so we have it all together. I'm a coach who has many coaches. I don't just have one. And I'm wary. My coach also has coaches, and I don't know if I would be coached by someone who wasn't coached themselves, because I definitely, the question that I'm always asked around, and I promise I'll answer your question in just a second, I'm always asked is around the, the certification, should you have, should all coaches have to be certified? And I always respond and say, the issue of certification talks about competence, but you can be competent at something and still be a bad implement it badly. And I said, we even think about things like the medical profession and being a doctor, but worst examples, but there are doctors who have turned out to be awful human beings who were absolutely certified as doctors, so it's not like they were unknown to the General Medical Council. So the idea of a certificate safeguarding you is false. That doesn't exist. But coming back to the idea of, okay, so now we're focused in on thinking about how do we do the best and be the best kind of coach that we can be in this space. I think it's really important that we focus on, ensure that everybody understands that the focus of coaching is not the coach, it's the other person. And the other party is that focus. And it can be very difficult, I would say, for people to for people to get, the fact that, I am a coach with a whole load of other things going on. Things are definitely not perfect in my life. There are still things that, I would still refer to my coach to, and there are things I'm learning every day. But, my own mindset had been one of the biggest challenges that I, had to overcome, as I would say it would be anybody else's. Because you are the author of your own life, you have to be you are the only person standing in your way at any point in time. What you believe to be true about yourself, your agency, what you're capable of, and what's going on in the world, they are the things that are helping you to succeed or causing a block for you. So it was my mindset, operating in fear. And I would also say, because of some of the kind of labels that I came with, so I'm Nigerian, I was a daughter, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and those labels can feel very restrictive, and basically coming up with a new definition of what those labels mean. So, for example, mother, everyone, and in so many spaces, motherhood is akin to martyrdom. And for such a long time, I was like, I don't want to be a mom. Like, that's not how I want to spend my life. It has been the joy of my life to be a mother, but not least because I have redefined what that means. And one of the things that it means for me is to, I only have sons, so I don't have a daughter at the moment. Not that I'm planning any more children. I can't wait for them to get married and give me some daughters. But what I would say is that one of my key responsibilities as a mother and as someone, as a female in their life, is to show them the importance of a woman fulfilling her destiny and being vital and using her skills and her knowledge in the way that makes her feel alive. That's my responsibility, to show my sons what that means. And so that's a very different definition of motherhood versus the version of motherhood that perhaps was sent my way, along with the Bible, because it often comes with a Bible getting bashed over your head. But that isn't what, I don't believe that is the intention of, the realities of what the message in that Bible is. But I definitely do think that people have taken what's in there and totally used it to their own benefit, to, as, mass mind control. And so for me, my own mindset, freeing myself from those labels, taking real control and agency of my life have been some of the challenges that I've overcome, but have also enabled me to lean on those experiences when I am coaching others. It's the reason why I really do sit in a place of non-judgment, because I am not in any position to judge. My life is far from perfect.
That's brilliant. And that is so true. Mine is the same. You know that I'm putting stuff out about menopause all the time. I have a lived experience of that, and I feel, and I'm the same as you, Yinka, people will see what they want to see ultimately. That's the point, isn't it? And
would you trust a coach that had no problems? Because
no.
Ultimately you can only be an overcomer if you overcame things. So where is the proof that they could actually help do what they say they're going to help you do?
Exactly. And I remember we had a mutual friend of ours, a mutual connection, Lindsay Sharrett, and also did coaching conversations. And one of the things that still stays with me every single day, it's what scripts were we unknowingly, unwittingly handed or picked up for ourselves that, that says, well, I can still remember, I was a manager in the 1990s, late 90s, early 2000s, and I can still remember being the only woman in a management pod of men and thinking, I've got to behave a certain way, I've got to dumb it down to fit in, and the thought that I could even go off and have a baby and a career was like, it's one or the other, honey, and then I thought, well, no, it's not. Why does it have to be? And so the reality is, I very much see the next generation of women maybe not having those mindset obstacles. Yes, there will be. If it's not about this, it will be about something else. But the reality is they do expect to be able to have it all. And I think that's a refreshing attitude. I think we just need to make sure they've got the skills to see it through. And you're absolutely right. The coaching will always help that, because these gremlins of identity, if they're not popping up yet, they possibly could be.
And I think, having recently just finished a masterclass with my team over on focused on knowing and showing your worth, this idea of what excites me about the upcoming generation is that, as you said, this will not be their burden. They're going to have other burdens. I didn't have a digital childhood, so I can only imagine the challenges that you know, that come along with, you know, forming your own sense of self-worth and beauty in the context of, you know, Instagram. You know, my brain boggles at the idea, and, you know, we're really going to have to help them, you know, to kind of navigate some of that. But the thing I love is that they are, you know, they are much more, equality is just so much more obvious to them. They're like, why wouldn't things be fair? It's ridiculous that they're not. And so I love the fact that many of the isms, you know, racism, sexism, ageism, you know, ableism that have plagued our planet, you know, there is a much better chance to deal with the acts. There's obviously work up to be done around the systems, and dismantling systems is not a small job. But I love the fact that, you know, in conversations that I have with young people, they just have this sense of, you know, things need to be better than where they are now. Racism is ridiculous. Sexism is unacceptable. And even just having that as a baseline really kind of fills me with hope that the very difficult work to dismantle these structures is likely, you know, to really take some additional shape, you know, when they get into the space where they're able to do that.
Absolutely, whoop to that, because I agree with you, and my biggest motivation around that is I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and I just want it to be different for you and yours and your generation. That's our thing to do, isn't it? Make it better.
Absolutely. And you know, the idea of being a good ancestor really kind of it plays in my mind. It's something I think about a lot. It's something I focus on. It's how I'm building my business. It's why I've got really clear idea of legacy and the kinds of things I want. It's also, I wrote and write often what I call my eulogy. So, you know, the kinds of things I want said of me at my funeral. Obviously not word for word, I'm not that much of a control freak, but the point there is, you know, what do I want to be true of my life in its entirety? I have a really clear idea of that. And so it just means that I'm very focused, and really it inspires me. I have a real sense of my mortality. I'm not going to be here forever, but my impact can be, but the change I can make can be. And so that's what I'm really focused on.
Yeah, you know, that's so interesting that you say that, because when I've had some change work done for myself last year, I went through a process, and, you know, I went to an amazing guy who I really, really rate. And I said that actually one of my values was to leave a legacy. And he went, leave a legacy? What good is that? Leaving a legacy? And I said, no, what I want is to know that as a value, I left something that was valuable for other people to use, you know, that they can make use of, they can make even better, they can go on and do something with it. But I wanted to have started something that still has life in it. And even if I don't have the life in me to continue with it, I would like someone else to continue with it, because I feel it's got to be a force for good. So actually went, okay, good point. You know, and it's just, you know, it's that, isn't it? Because we're told all too often that a legacy has some sort of, you know, we sort of think, well, what is that? You know, but when you're really clear, like we've said throughout this conversation, Yinka, when you're really clear about what it is you're doing, that's brilliant. And so I'm just looking at my questions now. So if you could tell me, what do you think we need in schools right now then? The eyes just went really wide there. We've got about 10 or 15 more minutes, and I've got a couple more questions to ask you. But what do you think we need in schools that are going to assist?
Okay. Because my mum's business looks at schools through the lens of food and nutrition, and also because I sit on 2 different governing bodies here in the UK, I have very strong opinions about our education system and what is needed. And one thing I will say is that if the purpose of school is to prepare our young people and enable them to be the very best that they can be in the future, then that is what schools need to focus on. And so I'm not suggesting for a second, and, you know, I have so many friends who are teachers, so I'm not saying that we need to take classical education off the curriculum, but what I am saying is that we have to think about things holistically. So if we were to come up with an avatar, so to speak, of a person being able to live their fullest life and make their best contribution to society, what would some of those, what things would be true? So they would have a very good understanding, for example, of how money works. Then fine, then schools should be teaching about money. They should be teaching about, they would, be of healthy weight. And, this is not a body, the look of the body issue. This is about health and well-being. And as a result of that, they should teach about exercise, about movement, about nutrition. They would have a good understanding of, a good sense of their own emotional vocabulary, and be able to describe their feelings, and be able to have coping mechanisms and a sense of resilience. Then these are the things, that schools should be teaching. They should give children safe environments to fail. They should give kids impossible tasks that have no solutions, and let them get on with it and see how they solve them, and see what happens when they can't. See who will cheat, see who will give up, see who will keep going, seek out other ideas. And we need schools to give children the skills and the knowledge and the experience that they need to thrive in real life. And so with respect to coaching and the opportunities that are really available there, this idea of having people come alongside you, even the idea of being able to to not have every answer that you need available at your fingertips, and to work through things, and to continue to think about education and development as an ongoing process, not just a one-off, we're done when we're 16 and that's the end of ever picking up a book. And so I really think that schools should support young people to live their best life, and a great experience at the time, preparation for the future, and really enable them to be minded, to be prepared for the life, for the society that is being created for them. And unfortunately, that isn't all of what is currently happening in the education space right now.
No, and absolutely. And I think lockdown is bearing that out for lots of young people, because they don't have that flexibility. We have a one-way system of education. It's mostly transmit rather than receive. And I don't think that's helping young people. So I agree with you completely, Yinka. So, preparing young people for life is so important. And mostly I see most people in their middle age whereby they think it's something to do with work that's tripping them up. It actually isn't. It's an inflexibility within themselves that they can't seem to get beyond. And so I think flexibility in the animal kingdom, the species that has the greatest flexibility is the one that invariably survives and flourishes and develops and goes on and advances. And so I think we're missing the basics, aren't we? And it's a big bugbear for me. I really get my nose right out of joint with this one, which is around, it's not just about going, you need to be more resilient. How do you do that if no one's taught you?
So many of the things that we need our young people to have are things we need ourselves, and we're not that good at ourselves. But also are things like patience. You can't learn patience, you practice patience. And so in order to practice patience, you need to have something that you really want that you can't have right now. No one likes that feeling. So, and therein lies the challenge. And what I was talking about before, associating bad feelings with something being bad, not at all. The patience training, as I often talk about, things in my life that, the opportunity to practice patience only comes about with the need to wait. And so creating those safe spaces to fail, to learn resilience, to learn kindness, to learn justice, to learn equity, all of those spaces should be what's happening in schools.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just also caveat that with, there is a responsibility for parents as well to follow that up, because I think there is a mindset, sadly, which is about school should sort this out. I think we as parents,
it all starts at home.
It all starts at home. Yeah, I think we're definitely on the same page with that, Yinka. And I was doing the hoovering at the weekend with my daughter and dusting and polishing, and we don't have a cleaner. We've never had a cleaner at our house, because actually I personally believe I was brought up by, sounds very similar to you. My mum is Sri Lankan. She came over, she was a nurse when she was 19 here in the UK, was a nurse for more than 35 years. My mum did her own housework. It was quite a powerful learning. She slept 4 hours in the day. She cooked every single meal. She did all the shopping, but it taught me, I'm not saying it's a competition, and I know that not everyone else wants to do that. But what I think for me is that supports the values that I have. And I think you're similar in that way. And that's what we're showcasing to our children, aren't we?
Absolutely. I think it's really important that you do what's right for you. My children have a rota. If we ever do have a cleaner, she works for me, not for you. So, that doesn't
that.
that doesn't mean you get out of your washing up, because you just don't. But even there, we don't, for example, we don't pay them pocket money to do chores, because that's their contribution to our family team. I'm not paying you to do things that are of benefit to our mini society here in this way. And so, yes, I completely agree with you that it's important that when you think about what your values are, you then think about how you express them in practical terms. So yeah, then you don't get out your chores. I don't care.
Oh, I just thought it was me, to be quite honest. I thought I was the only one cracking the whip, to be quite honest. But
No, not at all.
So let's talk a little bit. So we've got just a couple more questions. So let's talk about, so I love this question, and seeing as Christmas has come and gone, we need a little bit of a dinner party or a meet up in a coffee shop. So which 3 people would you bring, and why, Yinka?
This was the question I found the hardest, but very quickly, I'd bring my grandfather.
Okay.
He's my mum's dad, and he died before I was born. But when having had such a lovely relationship with my grandma, him having had 3 daughters, and never, as would have been tradition in the time that he was alive, they would have said to him, your wife is only giving you daughters, going either get another wife to get a son, or ditch your family and go and start a new one. He didn't do any of that, and so he just had a respect and love for women, and just empowered my grandma, and then his daughters, my mum and my aunties, to be really remarkable women. And so I'd love to meet him, because I met her, and she always, till the day that she was still lucid to talk about him, she spoke about him so lovingly. She so loved him so much. So I'd love to have met him. So my granddad is one. My second would be, it's kind of a hybrid, but there's one of the warrior queens, who's a really powerful part of Nigerian history, is called Queen Amina Bakwa. And she is credited as being someone who, long before, I believe, the Romans were, credited with metal armor, she is credited as being the person who actually introduced metal armor.
Wow.
And in so many different environments, it's often that the work of women is then attributed to guys later on. So I love, there are some really amazing stories about Queen Amina Bakwa. So I'd love to meet her. She was such an incredible strategist, and did some really incredible things around the military, around leadership, around women in leadership. Have dinner with her, although I don't know what she'd eat. It would probably be very different. And then I randomly would love to meet, there is a podcaster called Lovey Ajayi, and she is also Nigerian, and she's just so cool.
How do you spell her name? How do you spell her name? Because I'll put this on the link.
Yeah, Lovey is Luvvie, and then Ajayi is Ajayyi. But yeah, I'd love to meet her. She's one of my hashtag goals. But I love, her brand is very kind of subversive to traditional Nigerian culture. So I love that she just, she's doing her thing. She's unapologetic in her authenticity. And I think we would have such a love. I think if we met, we'd be such good friends. So I'd love to have her for dinner.
Wow. Tell me, what would be a really great Nigerian dish to have? I've never had Nigerian food, but I'm a food obsessive.
Well, I promise you, whenever we get away from this, I promise you, we will have dinner. I will make you some food. But again, rice is often credited as our food, but it isn't actually it's kind of later and more westernized version of our food. So there's jollof rice, which was originated in the Gambia and sees a lot of the West African nations face off about whose recipes.
Oh, really?
Oh, totally.
Brilliant.
But to be honest, I mean, I'm not going to start a controversy on your coaching conversations, but
okay.
I don't like certain nations jollof rice. I'm not going to say which. I love Ghanaian. I love Nigerian jollof rice. I love some others and some others less so. But a lot of the food that is Nigerian, and again, the idea of Nigerian food actually is kind of a misnomer because of the size of the nation and because of the different people groups there. So things that are common to where my family originate from, which is in the southwestern region, we are Yoruba, and we live near rivers, so a lot of our dishes have fish. There's this incredible roasted plantain with like a spinach, tomato, like
look at you, you're already there, Yinka. I can tell you already tasted it.
I'm going to post about it again in another few days. It was one of my biggest LinkedIn posts as well, because people like, ew, like bananas and fish. And I'm like, no, it's plantain is not a banana. And again, I mean, I'm not going to say that it's an ignorant statement because obviously that's not how you eat, but you know, we eat according to the land and we eat where we live. So, you know, if you live near rivers, a lot of your dishes will have fish. If you know, more inland, you'll eat more meat and plant-based. So, you know, in the same way that I don't eat, you know, according to, for example, what they eat in, you know, when I went to Hong Kong and they were like pulling squids out of the tank and frying them live. And I was like, oh my God. So then I was like, no, this is how they eat. So like, suck it up. So, but yeah, I definitely love the you know, the plant-based food, the you know, the use of spice, not just heat. A lot of it, like hot pepper is a lot of what Nigerian food is associated with, but actually it's very tasty and it's a lot more plant-based than we realize. So
I
will definitely cook you some food.
Oh yes, please. And I will reciprocate if you're up for it. I would cook you a Sri Lankan curry.
Love a Sri Lankan curry.
And the banquet. And again, they really love their spices. It's not about the heat, although you can have that. And in fact, a lot of theirs are very subtle in the way that Thai is very fragrant. Sri Lankan food is very fragrant. And often, again, a misnomer about our culture in food. I'm half Irish as well, so stew featured quite a lot on our. What polar opposite? Stew and curry. I mean, goodness me. But you know, it's that whole thing that people think, oh, it's very much like Indian. It's not like Indian at all. So I would always spend my life being on a culinary journey. So yes, I hold you to that, and vice versa. That would be lovely. So so last but not by no means least, and you have touched on this a little bit, but you know, there's no force. I know gravity exists, but there's no force that's stopping Yinka. So what are you going to be doing? What does the future hold? The short, medium, long term for you, Yinka? What have you got your sights set on?
Well, I am definitely building a platform. I think that the challenges in one of the roles that I have is as an advisor to a VC fund, which supports founders from underrepresented backgrounds. So in the UK, when we look at how little funds go to, for example, businesses founded by Black women, it's ridiculous. But then when you look, you know, globally, and you look at the return on investment for Black female-led businesses, it's incredible. So I am definitely passionate about building a platform to really demonstrate just how incredible, you know, businesses run by women can be, already are. I'm really passionate about, you know, building out this idea of, you know, this legacy building, focus driven, values led business leadership. And so, you know, through the work of, you know, building these roadmaps for women and, you know, the courses, possibly a podcast in the short to medium term, definitely a book is on the way. I've been writing too many books at once. I've dropped a few so that I can get one finished, but I'm just really passionate about, as I said, I know I'm not going to be here forever. Even if I live to 100, it's still not forever. I will get a lot of things done, but I definitely want to make sure that after I'm gone, that the world is a better place for all people, but especially people who look like me, women, people of color, to be able to go out and have that agency, you know, define success on their own terms, and live the life of their dreams. So I'm, you know, I have, as I said, medium, longer, and you know, pretty far out plans to kind of make that happen, you know, in different phases.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's watching this could see that that is going to happen, because you've got that clarity. And that's a word I use a lot in my conversations. You know, when you've got clarity, it's a bit like, I've got my glasses here. The other day I put my glasses on and I was amazed I could see through them. They were so greased up, and it was because I've been so busy. I really like things to be clear. And of course I went and cleaned them. My goodness, I was able to really see just with more clarity. So I know that's a metaphor, but we can hear that in your voice, and we can really see it on the page. And again, for people who haven't met you, I can't imagine there's many, but if you haven't met Yinka, definitely follow you on LinkedIn. But what would be the other way that people can get in touch, get to know more about you, Yinka?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I do, I have a daily resource for women in business. It's a daily email. It's been going for over 5 years, no breaks, not even the day I had my son. And so women in business, women careers, any woman can join the list at hello@callasuccess.com. My website will be at also callasuccess.com. But yeah, LinkedIn is my space right now. It's where I post daily. And is definitely kind of where I'm building the first kind of rung of that platform. So yeah, come find me there.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, Yinka, I mean, I could talk to you all day. And as with all of these things, the time just goes so fast. But I think the key message, what would be your key message to people watching, ladies, women, teetering on that line, on that edge? What's your shout out to them?
I mean, or my shout out would be to say to you that you are incredible and you're magnificent. And I think that it's you not believing that or not seeing that as clearly as you need to that's making you teeter. But the fact is that the world is your oyster if you believe it is. So if you're not believing that by yourself, then yeah, go and find, you know, the person, the coach, the, you know, whoever it is that can really help you to see you know, the power that you have and the impact that you can have. And yeah, we are only here for a little amount of time, but our impact can last way beyond our lifetime. So go through it. You've literally got nothing to lose.
Brilliant. And with that in mind, may I say, Yinka, thank you so much for joining me. And I got a feeling we'll be doing another one of these. There'll be a book, there'll be another rung or 2 or 3 on that ladder. But it will be a pleasure to have you back. So from me to you, thank you so much, Yinka.
Thank you, Amantha. Appreciate it.